is that I recently found out that the Watford Gap is not, as I first thought, Watford in Hertfordshire. You
Oh.
know, Watford FC, Hornets, all that jazz. It's actually Watford. There's a little village in Watford in Northamptonshire,
Hmm.
and apparently, and all this time, that is actually the where the Watford Gap comes from. It's like I said, it's the village of Watford, Northamptonshire. Uh, Engineers from Roman times onwards have found it to be an ideal route for connecting the Midlands to the southeast England, and it's been written and spoken of as marking the divide between northern England and southern England.
Hmm.
And I would get really kind of uppity when people say, "Oh, and yeah, if you're north of the Watford Gap, you're definitely northern." And me thinking that Watford was the Watford in Hertfordshire, I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? That means I'm northern then, because I'm north of Hertfordshire." And I don't have a northern accent or anything, as far as I know. But
I thought they still sounded southern in Hertfordshire, didn't they?
yeah, exactly. Well, again, Northampton basically is kind of Northamptonshire.
Like Milton Keynes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, Northamptonshire is basically it has Warwickshire to the west, Leicestershire and Rutland to the north, Cambridgeshire to the east, Bedfordshire to the southeast, which is where I am, Buckingham to south, Oxford southwest. So it's very much kind of a sort of in the middle of England, right?
Right.
But people say that, like, I guess the idea is if you go anywhere north of Northamptonshire, you are technically a northerner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Well, I don't know. It's a big debate, isn't it? What exactly makes you a northerner? Is it the accent? Is it your way of life?
is it what you call a bread roll?
Is it
as we
how far you
discussed
can
last
walk up a mountain before getting tired and rolling back down it? How many other people's doors you can piss on if you're in Glasgow?
Yeah, but I mean, okay. So let's say, for example, say north of Wales and south of Wales, because I know they're quite different to each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
How would you distinguish someone from northern Wales and someone from the south of Wales? Where does the sort of the sort of threshold between
Well,
those two kind of start and begin?
to start that off, I would have to say that Marty McFly secretly lives in North Wales because somewhere down the line he was looking at the map of North Wales and saying, "Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads."
So it's all hills and mountains and stuff up there.
if you I remember going on a work trip to Manchester. We rented an Enterprise car, drove a Nissan Juke. Not that fond of the car; it feels a bit clunky. But when we came back, we wanted to essentially avoid going through Wolverhampton again, like the M6. So we went down the back way, down North Wales, and never again. It was pissing it down, loads of bends in the roads, all that kind of stuff. And I feel like we could have just like waited it out on the M6 rather than go through North Wales. So it was a bit of a. Although my boss bought me a Burger King, so that's all good, and claimed it back on expenses. But
so no speedy in the tamping up there.
No, well, if you do speeding and tamping, you'll fall into the river. So I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah. Have you? I mean, have you been to North of Wales that much? Because it looks kind of like
Not only Aberystwyth for you open day. That's about it. If that counts as North Wales, more like midish. Oh well, let me fact check because I think Aberystwyth. I think it's like northwest sort of. Let's have a look. Just a quick one. So it is. If it will zoom out properly. More West Wales. So it's like Midwest. So yeah. So if you're thinking of like places North Wales, where people would go, there's like Snowdonia, obviously National Park.
Yeah.
You've got Wrexham, which is kind of like the capital up there. I think I'm not sure if Shrewsbury counts as Wales, or Hereford. Oh no, Hereford I think does actually.
Interesting fact about Wrexham, actually. Arsenal were league champions at the time in 1991.
Mm,
And the following season, they played in the FA Cup third round against Wrexham,
yeah,
who were the 92nd place team in the English Football League.
yeah,
I mean, they were right down there. And we got knocked out by them.
yeah.
And it's one of the biggest shocks in FA Cup history.
I that reminds me of Colchester last year in the Carabao Cup. Um,
Oh, that was a near thing. Yeah,
that
definitely.
was shocking. Or Bayern Munich, but let's not go there.
We'll get into football in a bit, but yeah, I mean, I really haven't been up north that much. I've been to Manchester for a gig. I saw Bob Mould in
Mm,
Manchester with my cousin,
yeah,
and yeah, really kind of thriving kind of city, and it was St Patrick's Day at the time as well, so there was lots of people in green bowler hats falling over drunk, and
yeah. I think because Manchester, I don't think is as expensive as London. A lot of businesses, especially TV businesses, tend to move up there to kind of get away from that cost of living in London. That could be one of many reasons, but you've seen that sort of boom in the Manchester digital culture in the last like 10 to 15 years, and it's quite astounding, really, because you know it's quite a big city as well. You've got I think Birmingham's the second biggest, but you don't see that much happening over there. Cardiff has its own scene. Bristol maybe. But I'd say Manchester and London definitely the biggest for TV related purposes.
yeah, definitely.